And very good afternoon to everyone who have joined in from different parts of the country, and some people are also outside from India on this occasion of the inaugural session of the second edition of India's first virtual legal marathon on ESG. I would quickly just take a couple of minutes to talk a bit about on the ESG Research Lab and what great interest we got from the student fraternity across the law colleges in India. Akshay, if you could just put up a couple of slides around that. I'm sure today the entire audience comprises of students. We have got industry practitioners, in-house counsels, CFOs. I've been expecting a few of the CEOs also. They had confirmed to join and watch us out today. And it's a great thing to celebrate the World Environment Day on 5th June, that's Sunday. And this particular event is a registered action this year with the UNEP as action which we're putting for World Environment Day, our contribution from the legal fraternity to sit across, have around 100 shortlisted students. If we could see, Akshay, on the next slide, please. It's only one Earth is the theme of this year's World Environment Day, and very much in line that what is the sense of urgency to protect planet Earth. And everyone, all our actions are very much required. Last year, it was ecosystem restoration. And we saw lots of great initiatives happening across the globe in India. And with this particular theme of 2022, only one Earth, it would definitely set people thinking about lots of proactive things they can be doing as individuals and as companies. And the ESG Research Lab will throw out lots of good research around what better practices can be adopted. Moving to the next one, we saw great response when we opened the registrations to law students, 100 plus colleges, universities. We got the nominations, 700 plus registrations. It was really tough to pick in 100 from there. So that there was a rule-based approach, very objective manner in which the selection process was done. And the research lab starts tomorrow with these 100 bright minds to more discuss on ESG. We will get through 3 major activities, that is ESG laws indexing, UN SDGs, the best practices, and international laws research. So at Dhir Associates, we have been at the forefront of thought leadership on ESG. Was the first law firm in India who had set up a dedicated practice desk on ESG in January 2021. This year, we have seen post last first year's great ESG Research Lab acceptance from the student community and the industry. We did put up some more great initiatives like the Planet People program, the ESG almanacs, which has become very handy for corporate counsels, CFOs, and the senior management. The annual survey, you would see in a month's time, you will get those questionnaires for this year's 2022's survey responses for India. And one great other thing which we've been doing is running the ESG Decibels, the podcast series. So in whatever manner, as a firm, we could create the awareness, help out our clients in the ESG journey, be doing that at the forefront. Now with this quick background, and we have already today got in more than 720 registrations which had happened Before we started the event, people are coming in, and I think it's a great audience to have. And I would request the founder and managing partner of Dhir and Dhir Associates, Mr. Alok Dhir, to give a welcome address to the entire audience who has come in together today. Please, sir.
Thank you so much, Sonal. Thank you for a great introduction and setting the tone for the event today, so to speak. And a very good afternoon to one and all, everybody who has joined us today for this inaugural ceremony of the second edition of the first virtual legal marathon on ESG. And I particularly thank the retired Chief Justice of India, Shri Deepak Mishra, who unfortunately is not able to join us today, but he sends his compliments and his good wishes and best wishes for this program. And the other esteemed panelists, Mr. Manish Gupta, the Group General Counsel, CK Birla Group, Mr. Prateek Sharma, the Vice-Chancellor, TERI SAS, Tanishaa Mukerji, actor and environmentalist, and Shukla Wassan, independent director, GE Power India, Glycols, and other companies. We at Dhir and Dhir Associates take immense pride in kickstarting the World Environment Day celebrations. As we all know, the World Environment Day is the 5th June, Sunday. And I think we've synchronized this to end on the this particular program, to end on the 5th June itself, as we did last year. And some of the leading industry experts, corporates, and young professionals join us today in this celebration. In continuation of the first edition of the event held last year, we are back once again to draw focus of our industry and business leaders to ESG and other related concerns. We seek to refocus all the stakeholders to the urgent action required to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, to which India is a signatory. As part of the World Environment Day 2022 celebrations, we endeavor to support this year's theme, Only One Earth, by advocating the urgent need for environmental change, climate action, and reducing emissions, while encouraging sustainable living. Friends, the environment we live in is facing a state of emergency as we face environmental deterioration and degradation at a very fast pace. And swiftly and mindlessly, we are moving towards the apocalypse. We need to change track urgently. Businesses and entire commercial activities in the world are focused on the narrow objective of making profits and creating wealth. And in the process, we have shown scant respect to the environment. On the other hand, exploitation of the environment, human resources, and Mother Earth has led to degradation of the environment at a very fast pace. We have reached a tipping point. And just as an example, let me speak a word on soil degradation, which is becoming increasingly important world over. A healthy soil needs 3 to 6% organic content in the topsoil, which is just the top 39 inches of the soil. 62% of India's soil has less than 0.5% of the organic content. So where's the nutrition? Our food and vegetables are also losing nutrition at a very fast pace. 87% of the planet's life, including me and you, microbes, worms, insects, birds, animals, trees, live on this 39% of the top soil. As the organic content comes down, the soil becomes dead. The biomass has come down by 80% in the last 5 years. At this rate, by the end of the century, 80% of the life on this planet will die. The situation is that scary. So it is imperative that the world undertakes collective action and works towards achieving sustainability. We at Dhir started our journey 2 years back. As they say, better late than never. The problem is far too severe, but we started our journey 2 years back. During this period, we've taken many initiatives, including the marathon's first edition in June 21, where Ms. Sherry Blair gave the maiden keynote address. As a continuous effort by the firm, we are also encouraging youth participation, and therefore throughout the year, we have been devising activities that support such engagement. We believe in the youth of the nation. We believe that they are the torch bearers who are the ones who are going to carry this issue forward. In the last event that we had last year, 450 law students from 94 colleges and universities participated. 100 students were shortlisted and we had 30 winners. The event was well covered by media and the winners were splashed all across. The pictures of the winners were splashed all across. This year, we have 700 aspiring students from 102 colleges eager to join this journey. I congratulate them all for their interest in the environmental concerns faced by the entire planet. We have taken other initiatives like issuance of the ESG Almanac for India and also an ESG Almanac for global, which is the first of the kind proprietary tool created by us. And we have given free access to the entire industry to use this tool. We have entered into tie-ups with Every Woman, a UK-based organization working in diversity, equality, and inclusion at workplaces. We have collaboration with Simu Lead Group, which has launched a mentorship program on ESG principles. Another initiative of Dhir is ESG Decibels, a podcast series where influential persons from all walks of life give their perspectives on various aspects of ESG, such as influence and impact of ESG on diversity, sustainability, development, industry, financing of sustainable businesses, private equity funding, role of business leaders, corporate directors, fashion, etc. We have collaborated with GreenPro, a CII initiative of eco-labeling certification. And recently in April 21, we have launched the Planet People program, which is hashtag ESGFIT in collaboration with Uttaranchal University and FICL. It's India's first industry academia human chain commitment towards sustainability. This has also received wide publicity and support from environment and political leaders. We also publish a dedicated newsletter, The Horizon, to highlight issues relating to ESG. Incidentally, Dhir has been declared winner in the area of environmental law by India Business Law Journal in 2021 and again this year in 2022. It only shows our commitment towards the environmental law and the environmental issues. We at DND aspire to promote the right actions and consciously create awareness focused on transformation of the society in a manner that strives to achieve sustainable development. ESG is an increasingly popular area of practice, and as a niche domain for the firm, we are constantly formulating our services to align with global standards. Today, it is imperative for the companies to be aware of their conduct and the potential impact of its activities on the environment and people. It is time to take onus, to devise strategies and mitigation plans that are formulated to create a better future. In fact, with the market regulator SEBI having imposed mandatory ESG reporting on the top 1,000 listed companies from this year, there is an added sense of responsibility amongst the corporates to decode the different elements of ESG, which cover a wide ambit of components from environmental protection to diversity, equality, inclusion, data piracy, ethical business conduct. Today's generation, friends, is known to be more conscious and aware about its surroundings, and they want to make a difference. We strongly believe that if the right opportunity is given, youth has the ability to make the required changes needed for the world today. The 24-hour research lab is one such opportunity where we provide budding lawyers with the chance to learn and understand the relevance of ESG in today's business environment. Over the last couple of years, Mother Earth has been raising alarms on how the planet has been disrupted by man-made actions and the impact people and our activities have on the natural surroundings, including over-utilization of the resources. Looking to the existing state of affairs and the urgent need to take corrective action, we envision to create a momentum around climate action via this virtual legal marathon, whereby we make the young generation aware of the potential they have to make to change. Another essential reason for us to focus on ESG is the S component, which includes people. And it's the people who make a major role in making or breaking the current crisis situation in terms of only one Earth. We endeavor to promote the role of ESG components in the day-to-day operations across domains, industries, and encourage people to adopt practices that support sustainability and inclusive development. Going ahead, we have to learn to utilize our resources carefully with responsibility and focus on setting a new cycle of motion for reprocessing, recovery of the resources, reutilization of the resources rather than continuously exploiting them. We have to learn to respect human life and ensure that we uphold the principles of human rights across activities, businesses, and industries. We have to set up standards of responsible governance and learn to live with them. And lastly, we endeavor and hope to create ESG warriors and convert many of our aspiring lawyers who are participating here today to carry the torch of ESG and make the difference that this world needs. And on this note, I would like to sign off. We only have one earth, and it is our duty to take care of it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mr. Dhir, for a very insightful and very passionate approach on saving our only one earth and putting up the right aspects, how important this ESG research lab for the law students, for the industry it could be, and they would take the things with your guidance note forward. And as now we have got our panelists along with us, we would make a quick introduction. I think they have been there waiting a bit. And again, it is all great people from the industry, quick introductions, and I get them. So we have Mr. Prateek Sharma. He's the Vice-Chancellor of TERI School of Advanced Studies. Hi, Mr. Sharma. Very great to have you.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening.
Good afternoon. So great to have Dr. Sharma here. He has pursued his PhD in environmental engineering from Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Delhi, ME Hydraulics and BE Civil from Civil Engineering Department, Delhi College of Engineering. He has more than 22 years of research and teaching experience. His general research interest focuses on environmental systems modeling, statistical applications in environmental and water resources engineering, and environmental risk assessment. The interesting part of Dr. Sharma's profile is his membership in several professional societies. He has been admitted as a fellow of Wessex Institute of Great Britain in 2004 in recognition of outstanding scholarly work in the area of air quality modeling. He is a member of the National Knowledge Network constituted by the Central Pollution Control Board to support the activities of the National Clean Air Program launched by the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. So great to have you, Mr. Sharma, out with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of the research lab, ESG research lab. And I'm so happy that, this lab is being organized and it is so contextual and so relevant, and I'm very happy to be part of such discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Quick introduction. We have got Ms. Shukla Wassan with us. She is an independent director on several boards in India, power woman, I would say, and chairperson of some companies in which she is there on the board. She is also an internationally accredited arbitrator and mediator. She has over 3 decades of experience as in-house corporate counsel and has been with organizations such as Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages, Reckitt Benckiser, Xerox India. She also mentors senior leaders in legal fraternity. We are so grateful to you. Ms. Wassan, for your time.
Thank you, Sonal. It's an opportunity for me also to get to hear other perspective and be in this panel. And also, thank you so much for inviting me to this August gathering.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Wassan. And we have got with us Mr. Manish Gupta, who, in addition to having done his LLM and LLB, Manish Gupta is also a qualified chartered accountant and company secretary. So possibly, I think all the degrees possible what a professional at the senior management would find in 3-4 different people, Manish ji has done all that. He's currently working as Group General Counsel of CK Birla Group. Prior to this, he has worked with various Indian companies and MNCs such as Jumbo Electronics Dubai, Usha International Limited, Xerox India, Carrier, Air Conditioning and Refrigeration, G Capital, KPMG, amongst others. With experience spanning over 25 years, his repertoire includes setting up a strong governance and compliance culture, litigation, cross-border M&A, and advising on company and corporate related issues. And our fourth panelist who would be joining us at 5 would be Tanishaa Mukerji, actor and environmentalist. So when she joins in, I would get to her profile. And welcome everyone on the panel today. And as we just get the floor open and we start discussing, there were some interesting statistics I just would like to put across. Akshay, if we can just put up some interesting stats around and some major developments which we need to have, we all have kept in our mind in this whole discussion. If we see, the change has to happen now. Air pollution is leading to deaths. Next slide, if we can see in climate change, pollution, biodiversity. On this very year of only one Earth, these three things, if we see there are multitude of factors, interlinkages, what would finally, if not taken care, annihilate this whole planet Earth. Next slide, we see this, we all have been hearing on our news channels, newspapers last year or so. November, we had in Glasgow COP26, every prominent global leader was there. 14 days, lots of discussions did happen that if we do not limit this temperature rise, things are tough. If we move on to the next one, UN Sustainable Development Goals and only one Earth, things are aligned. How we taken into our companies and see that things can be bettered out. And if you see the whole evolution for people who have joined in today and do not have much exposure on ESG, from 2004 till now, I would say 2015 was the changing time when the Paris Agreement got signed in and the UN Sustainable Development Goals also kicked in. India is signatory to both. And we saw lots of things thereafter happening globally. Like last year itself, we can see on the next slide. Throughout the year, we had it in India. We saw SEBI, BRSR, what Mr. Alok Dhir did talk about, that mandate of 1,000 top listed companies to report on the ESG framework. It's the Indian Performance Standard on ESG. We did see globally, be it US, in Europe, lots of actions happen. And it continued this year also, right from the start of the year. And we could be seeing certain changes with the accounting bodies like US IFRS. If on next slide we go in, We saw the EU pass the draft directive on business and human rights, far-reaching impact for Indian corporates because somewhere we are a part of the global supply chain. IFRS, the US accounting body, because of its commitment in the COP26, 2 exposure drafts have been already put through this board, which was set up in November, ISSB, International Sustainability Standards Board, because there's too many of standards floating around, heterogeneity in ESG following. So attempts are being put, at least we could get some homogeneous factors come in and see the life for the planet could be bettered up. April was interesting. We saw Australia and China ratify the ILO protocols on forced labor that was pending for a long, long time. May, we saw Finland come up. Every country is saying, okay, 2050, 2070, we will get the laws in place, get the carbon emission to zero. Those trust words were changed into a law in Finland. 2035 is the commitment of putting zero carbon until 2040 to go to negative carbon. And that sort of legislative environment we would see in all the major jurisdictions. There's lots of action in India happening. Like if we can go to the next slide, we just see that this budget, at least 15 pointers very clearly that we are aligned to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the ESG journey, and we would see lots of actions happening because of these schemes out there. The next 25-year plan of the Amrit Kal, the 100th year when India would enter, is all around the basics of environment, social, and governance. So on this background, I would get to the panel, won't come in between. We have Prateek out with us. And Prateek, you happen to be leading one of the most illustrious places of learning on sustainability in the country. And lots of think tanks of the government also associated. What role would ESG play in enhancing sustainability for companies?
Yeah. So actually, if you see, traditionally, ESG has been used as a metric or a measure for the investors to identify, how green friendly a company is. But now over the years, but now this conventional view is gradually changing. And today, basically, ESG, helps the companies to create a sustainability strategy to help mitigate environmental concerns and, matters related to, climate change and similar things. So what used to be a sort of a, initially when, basically, when the very concept came into existence of ESG, it was all about investing how what are the various factors which are related to environmental concerns, social concerns, and corporate governance factors. These three factors which basically impact the company's overall performance. But now the same thing which was basically investor oriented now is becoming a strategy, sort of, in which the companies try to create, various strategies so that, to mitigate various environmental concerns related to the production activity associated with the company. Say, for example, the environmental concerns for a company that includes pollution linked to production, how to source the materials, the renewable energy sources, and other factors which could be linked to the company's response to the climate change. So now the similarly, when this is related to environmental concern, but the same thing basically when you come to the social vertical of the ESG, The criteria basically looks the broad spectrum of how a company handles its social relationships, which, say, for example, includes how it handles the suppliers, so to say, the employees, the internal policies of the company, the customers, what is the company's stance towards the social topics such as human rights, the gender issues. And then, similarly, the third vertical related to ESG is the corporate governance, how it is linked to the executive level, stakeholders. Say, for example, what is the composition of the board of directors, the standards met by the senior level to run the company. What is the board diversity in terms of compensation, in terms of audit committee, in terms of, the whistleblower scheme, so to say. So, I mean, I'm just trying to give how it has evolved and how basically ultimately, So, so basically, now now it is picking up in a more as I mentioned, at the cost of repetition, what initially emerged as a investor oriented, metric for the investors to find out how responsible a company is. Now the company itself or themselves have become responsible to look into these aspects, because ultimately, there is a growing realization within the corporate world also, that the resources that the company uses for the various production activities are not infinite in character or nature. So obviously, one has to take into account, the sustainability of the production process also. And in that case, rather than some directive or a regulatory pressure coming from the government, the companies are becoming conscious themselves about the long-term objectives of the company, so that the profits are not limited to short-term gains, but to overall how sustainable the so to say the production of a particular component in which the company is involved, whether it will last a particular lifetime, which ideally would be would have a certain substantial years, not just 5-10 years, limited to 5-10 years only. So in that context, the companies are basically becoming more responsible, and the behavioral change is what basically is important, and which will take some time.
Right.
And but at the same time, it becomes imperative that the more the companies and the employees of the company become aware of these issues of sustainability, the more objectivity will come in running the company also in all the three verticals, and looking at the production and all activities which lead to that production in a very inclusive manner, in which all aspects related to the corporate governance, the social aspects, the environmental aspects will be taken into consideration. And once these things are taken into consideration with a lot of sensitivity and objectivity, certainly it will going to lead the sustainability of the companies, because the sustainability of the company will not be something which is coming from the government as a regulatory pressure, but which is a realization which the company is realizing on its own. Internally, on its own, to basically in its own interest to continue the process of production in which the company is involved. And therefore the company is going to invest in research and innovation, so that its own processes become self-sustaining. And
that's a great point you made on research and development. That make a key thing, Prateek ji. Now, one thing very clearly hearing you is ESG is a far more bigger envelope to play on, and sustainability is no more about some environment only, or only CSR activities, of which generally in the past in India related sustainability to. Now the playing area on sustainability is far more bigger by the principles of ESG. We will just quick opinion poll question for the audience. based on what we just heard from you, I think we take some comments from, yeah, if we can have the opinion poll question on sustainability up. Yes. Everyone, I think we have got a few seconds. We see what the audience is putting it up. Can we see how what's the opinion poll coming on this question? Yes, I think that's a very clear, Prateek ji, coming from the audience is yes. It's a clear yes, no. I think it's a very few percentage of 4% and 3%. I think all people who came for putting their poll, great. Now, related to what Prateek just said, Ms. Wassan, ESG is not only about environment. Can you please elaborate about the S part in ESG?
Yeah, I just put my ACs off before my.
I think a bit of noise.
So there's too many noise in my background. So, yes, just repeat the question that you said.
Yeah, I just said, Mr. Sharma, we saw that ESG is not only about environment. Can you please elaborate the S part in ESG, because with all the diverse work you have been doing, and especially why this question becomes very important is the guy I think everyone follows is Elon Musk. Was put outside the S&P ESG index a couple of weeks before, and he came up, we are doing great things on environment, so why have we been taken out of it? And the response of the members were, okay, there's lots of things on the S part at the workplace things which doesn't help us to keep Tesla for this year on the S&P ESG index. So on that background, Wassan, your views on the S part of ESG?
Yes, that environment, social and governance. Environment and governance has always been the buzzword in the corporate world. We've all been focusing on environment and how do we control pollution, all that is done. And a lot of sustainability also goes around. But another big factor is the social factor, which while some companies have been following, some companies may not have been following, or there's no standardized process as we go ahead, and that's the reason why people are now writing, people have written in the group, almost 96% of them have said that yes, there needs to be reporting. That brings about more accountability on the S factor of the whole thing. So S is basically, in fact, in a recent study conducted by KPMG, they found of global leaders, they found that 63% of them have claimed the social component, which is part of the ESG, will be silver lined over environment. So it's not that one with one, environment is there, but social component is going to be due. In fact, you put up in one of your slides that, who cares wins. So there's an emotional quotient that's coming into the whole aspect of the whole thing, So who cares win, which was there on the basis of which the ESG terminology has been coined way back and published in 2004.
Yep.
Today, in 2020-22, we are talking about social. So this was already conceptualized, only thing that awakening is happening because of COVID-19 pandemic which happened. Because that's the COVID-19, even in fact, it is interesting that, countries that were considered to be most prepared to deal with pandemic are now amongst the worst hit by COVID-19. And none of the countries have been spared. This is why it's a wake-up call for all organizations on the social aspect, which talks in terms of, that's the reason why global leaders are today redefining their investment strategy. They are now putting a lot of investment on the social aspect of their organization. Now, what does social aspect mean? First thing would be that your social license to operate. Now, social license to operate, if I come from a manufacturing industry, it really means that how are you operating at your neighboring villages and the township and the people in and around your village, and how are you working? So if you don't have a social license to operate, now how do you get a social license? It's not just, because CSR Companies Act mandates a 2% that you go and do tick boxing and you're done. It's not going to work anymore. You could do it. We could all do it.
No comments.
Yeah. I'm saying we could all do it. But today, there's also another ask which has come in. Impact assessment by third-party agencies. So to know whether the CSR activity, the social license on the basis of which we are operating, and the initiative that all the organizations are putting in, because I am now, I've been fortunately part of the corporate world, where CSR was part of my responsibility, and now I'm part of the board where we need to drive that process within the organization. So I'm getting to see both the things. So to my understanding is that, that the impact assessment will be a deciding factor as to whether you really get a social license to operate or not. And if you're going to publish those data, the leverage in the company is going to happen from there. In fact, in a recent study conducted by Harvard Business School, they found that, if you did an investment of $1, after 25 years, it yielded you $28 in return of those companies that focused on ESG. So if you're a company which focus on ESG, as per their study, after 20 years, if you spend $1, you get 28. Whereas those which do not focus or do not look into that aspect, their return is only $14. So it's completely half. So that's one part of the whole thing.
So I think you use these numbers when you are talking with the promoters of the companies, try to put in to invest.
So the other thing would be the stakeholder relationship and the value creation. Today, if you know the COVID, our stakeholders, our distributors, our customers, our contract workers and everybody, they've been through a harrowing time, including the organization themselves. But if the organization themselves are not able to sustain themselves, how would they sustain these stakeholders? But those organizations who stepped forward, and many organizations in India have done it, I know, but many have also taken the harsh route. Yeah. And they have worked with their stakeholders to help them to go forward, to help them to get their, to sustain themselves. Because you can't have a sustainable business.
Yep.
If you don't have your stakeholders who are also having a sustainable business. It's a cascading effect.
Right.
So the other effect is all your distributors and customers and people, all that happens, In addition to that, there is also another huge factor, the human capital, which is the employees of the organization.
Yeah.
That the employees of the organization is a very, very critical factor today. And it's not just monetary. It is employees are looking for far beyond monetary. They're looking at their health. They're not just the physical health. They're looking at the mental health. They're looking at the safety. And also,
I will come to that question a bit later on, Ms. Wassan.
No, I just want to add the last bit.
Yeah.
So in the human aspect, there comes in the diversity and inclusion. And as I said, and I also like to say, one size doesn't fit all. You need to know your DNA, and then only you'll be able to do it.
True. I will come back on that question to you. Can we have a quick opinion poll on the something around what we could relate to, Ms. Wassan? We have got a question for the audience up on the screen. I think it will be up. Yes. So let's see what is the response. Would your company reach 50% women workforce by 2030? Okay, we see, 39% is yes, that's a positive one. No is 26%, very clearly. Some people in the audience are very clear it's not happening, and maybe 35%. So the positive notes are 39 plus 35, not bad at all. And Coming to Manish, I know you have been making you wait for a long time. Manish, with all your great experience in corporate governance and legal sector, with this whole new energized way which has come through SEBI BRSR, circular on 10th May, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, which replaced the BRR. So 1st April 2022, it has already kicked in. Next year, every annual report would see it. Would BRSR lead to better non-financial disclosures? How important would it be for governance goals? Because Indian economy has always been financial disclosures. Non-financial disclosures, the analysts or anyone did not pay much heed to. It's all on to you. Looking to hear from you.
Thanks, Sonal, for the kind introduction that you gave earlier. And I'm happy to be part of this esteemed panel.
Thanks.
Now, coming back to the question that you asked, at least in my mind, I have no doubt that business responsibility and sustainability reporting will obviously lead to better non-financial disclosures. As was also pointed out Mr. Sharma earlier, the world over, the investor community and particularly the institutional investors track the ESG scorecard of the companies to decide their investment and capital allocation, which are obviously based on the ESG scorecard of these companies. Now, the companies which may not be doing that well on the ESG front will also be forced to give better non-financial disclosure. And the push factor will be that they want to avoid being ignored by the investor community. So this is a very big push factor on their side. On the other hand, there's an equally good number of companies who are doing much more on the ESG front than what is legally required, or who are much aware and concerned about their surroundings, environment. And obviously, they would like to showcase as to what they are doing. And therefore, in order to showcase what they are doing, they'll be more than happy to give additional and better disclosures so as to they can attract the attention of the investor community worldwide. So
That's a very important point you said.
So this is a pull factor. Right. So no matter what, whether it's a push factor for the companies which are not doing that well on the ESG front, or the pull factor for the companies which are doing relatively far better, no matter what, the fundamental point is that BRSR will indeed lead to better non-financial disclosure. Now, coming on the second limb of your question as to how important would it be for the governance goal, before I answer that, let's first look at very briefly as to how governance itself has evolved over the past 2 decades. As has also been pointed out earlier by my co-panelists, till about 2 decades ago, the major stakeholders for any businesses would be primarily the shareholders and maybe government or the regulators. But look at the stakeholders that we have today. Over a period of time, this list of stakeholders has increasingly got bigger and bigger. Now it includes your employees, your customers, your vendors, your society at large, and now perhaps the biggest stakeholder is Mother Earth. Earlier, the businesses were judged primarily on the financial performance, but now, if not more, equally important are parameters like how environment friendly your businesses are, what social impact your business is making, and how sustainable your business is, which are the 3 key elements of the ESG. So now, the critical governance goal itself includes all these elements of ESG. And in my mind, as we are progressing, wherein the climate change takes the center stage of the world and also the economic entities and the businesses worldwide, in my view, the markets, the investor community, the society at large may be willing to ignore slightly subdued financial performance, but any slip on ESG front, in my view, will be punished extremely badly. So we will live in a different environment and different world as to what we used to live in, let's say, about 20 years ago. And also, just to add a little bit from a governance perspective, and again, this is my personal view, this practices of businesses of buying carbon credits who are not themselves very environment friendly, and then showcasing to the world as to how concerned they are about this environment, this practice will eventually stop.
Greenwashing dangers. I think the whole world has seen, Mr. Gupta.
I mean, in my mind, these businesses will be forced to change their processes, be it manufacturing or otherwise, and have a real impact on the environment and not harp on the good work done by their businesses. So either you have to change or you perish. I think the message is very clear. Now it's a very harsh one out there. We have seen the consequences of climate changes, the kind of heat waves or the rainfall or the cold weather that we see across the world. So every business entity also has to take responsibility, and therefore, from that perspective, not only ESG will lead to better reporting, non-financial disclosure, but it will become the cornerstone of the governance itself.
Right. Right. Now, I would just take a quick opinion poll question coming on the screen. On what you said, Manish, I would just get that question up. Yes, please. This is one aspect which the whole industry is talking, that the 5-page template is becoming a bit complex. It can be too much of data collection, but I think for proper non-financial disclosures, let's see from the audience whether they think it's very complex or not. We'll have the results up very soon. Yes. Okay, fine. I think maybe yes. I think with more understanding on ESG, I think next year the answer would be no to this question by majority people. So here, and I know Prateek, you have a hard stop in a few minutes. Say your office did have informed. I will take one quick question before I come back to Ms. Wassan and Mr. Gupta. Prateek, how would you say is the ROI of sustainable practices companies? Because every company talks about, okay, what is my rate of my ROI around whatever investments I What?
Yeah. So actually, this is a bit tricky, but still, I'll try to, if you actually see the 3 pillars of sustainability, I mean, the 3 things which are very important, and these are 3 P's. And these 3 P's are basically people, planet, and profit. And as far as the companies are concerned, the companies are basically governed by, the profit motive. And whatever you may do or whatever you may say, the companies are not an institution of charity, so to say, but profit is the single motive factor, which basically is the governing factor. And I'll repeat what I mentioned earlier also in my previous response to your first question. If as far as the ROI and other things are concerned, if investment is made on research and innovation, and when waste becomes a resource which automatically builds in within the sustainability chain of a company, then automatically the issue of sustainability will get resolved on its own, rather than coming as a pressure from somebody else from the top. So basically what I'm trying to convey is, globally, the concept of green chemistry is picking up, where sustainable options are being practiced by the companies in order to increase the profit, to increase the profit, and one is looking for nature-based solutions and using the waste as a resource for the production process. So I'm not sure exactly, I hope I have somehow I've touched upon the question that basically you have raised, but certainly the sustainable practices, the ROI of the sustainable practices of the company certainly would depend on the realization and the knowledge that the supply chain, which is part of the ultimate production of a product, is such that first of all, waste minimization and the waste that is getting generated becomes a part of a profit only and used as a resource. So actually once, and that can only be done when, there is a lot of investment in research and innovation and identifying appropriate technologies, which basically the companies, would practice to make the various the chain of the ultimate production more sustainable. I mean, this is
No, I
what
think you have answered it very much on the point that aspects like green chemistry and other things put in and the right R&D investments are happening. You will have definitely products which the today's millennials get attracted to because they have a planet people perspective around it, which would lead to definitely more sales. And we would see like it's been a discussion point for many years in the industry of not only have a profit line reporting, but a planet people profit reporting. And what we saw that in March, the way IFRS US is trying to build up some thought process around it, we might see in few years the entire balance sheets to be read in a different manner.
Right, that's right. Absolutely.
It's great. It's great. Great to hear on that one. Anyone wants to have a quick minute to say on what Prateek, then we were talking on this ROI on ESG, your practical thoughts, Ms. Wassan, Mr. Gupta.
See, as I said that, assessment is going to be a deciding factor, data. So ROI in each of the parameters, the environment, there are, of course, there you have some measurement parameters already defined, but social is still evolving. Governance is there, but it still needs to evolve. So if you can have those parameters and the metrics in place, then this is an excellent way to measure how effective is the ESG program of an organization. So I completely agree. ROI is a benchmark to be able to evaluate.
Mr. Gupta, I'm very sure you have a quick minute take on this one. You're on mute.
Yeah. I would like to give a complete different perspective. I mean, when we talk about ROI on the investment that we make on ESG and all, I think we are taking a very myopic and a short-term view. What if you are making an investment today, but you vanish 10 years down the line? How do you calculate the ROI on that investment? The point is the opportunity cost of not doing is far more higher than what is the investment that you make to then reap the benefit. At the end of the day, if you the capital employed in the business and you fail to make investments on the ESG front, and you don't exist anymore after 10 years, then how do you calculate that ROI? The point is, in order to calculate ROI, you need to be there 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line. And you will survive only when you're doing a lot on the ESG front. So my point is, it's a survival issue rather than per se a ROI issue when you're making investments on the ESG front.
Great. That's a different take, but definitely I onboard the thought process that you have. I think we have Tanishaa. Good evening. Able to hear us? Yes. So we have with us now. We all know Tanishaa Mukerji, who has caught the screen with her power pack performances from Neil and Nikki to Sarkar and most recently codename Abdul. From a legacy of legendary performers, Tanishaa has stolen our hearts with each of her versatile performs across the platforms of film, theater, and television. But she's much more than a talented actress. She's an environmentalist, ocean lover, and has her Insta profile aptly mentions happiness creator. It was something very unique we saw in the Insta profile. Founder of the NGO STAB. Today, she is with us to share her thoughts on how we too can make a big difference towards the betterment of our planet. We would just like to inform the audience that this NGO STAB does lots of things around environment. And we would like to hear from Tanishaa herself, her thoughts on the entire environmental issues and what STAMP does. Yeah, Tanishaa, please.
Thank you so much for having me, firstly. I'd like to say that was a lovely introduction. Maybe not all of you do know me because I haven't worked that much in cinema as much as my sister has. You probably all do know my sister Kajol, however, and my mother Tanuja. And I'm very
I'm very
lucky
sure
to have,
everyone in the audience knows you fairly well, Tanishaa.
No, I don't presume that at all. I've been out of the films for many years, and I'm just blessed that I have the kind of legacy that I have and the kind of family that I have. And after having done whatever little bit I have to develop the voice that I have over the years, I felt it was necessary, or rather, I had something happen with me that made me feel the need to start an NGO like STAMP. And the need was very simple. It was that I live on this street. I moved to, I don't know if you know the suburb of Bombay, Santa Cruz, a few years back, about 10 years ago. And opposite me, there was a construction going on where they razed to the ground an entire Catholic colony. But then they also cut down, and I'm sure it was permissible by law, but they also cut down many large trees that I had seen growing up all my life. And they were very old trees. And I felt very helpless because I felt a deep connection with these trees and this environment. And I've had that connection all my life, thanks to my grandmother. And when I saw that, I felt like, what can I do about it? I felt like I should, yell at these corporates and like these, builders. How can they do this? But they'd taken permission. It was completely legal. It wasn't anything, so I felt very helpless. So I realized, okay, you know what? How can I offset that? Because I believe that, we have to go with progress, but we also have to take care of nature. And I think that's why I started STAMP, because it was about connecting nature with people and also understanding that even though progress is important, there are other things you can do to offset it. That was a realization I came to. And over the 2 years of COVID, I think that's also transformed. It's transformed to make me realize, I think COVID transformed a lot of people, but these 2 years of COVID made me realize that, oh my God, every other NGO is planting trees. What's so great about your NGO? Everybody's planting trees, like everybody's going with these school programs and everything. They're all planting trees. So what makes STAMP different? And I understood one thing very clearly, that it's never about what you do. It's about the intention you do it with.
So true.
And it wasn't about just planting a tree for the sake of planting a tree. It was about understanding the effect that nature has on us, on our minds, on our bodies, on our souls, on our spirits. It was about also educating people about these effects, about making people understand that it's not just about, you growing tomatoes on your terrace, which look very cool. It's why are you growing those tomatoes on your terrace? Is it because you're not getting that healthy food, which is lack of, without the pesticides in the market? It's about what does that healthy tomato feel to your body, as opposed to something that is, completely corrupted with chemicals and things. It affects our senses. And all of you are leaders in your industry, and you all must understand how important it is for your mind and your brain to be working at optimum levels. And in order for that to happen, we need clean food, we need a clean environment, we need a clean body and a clean mind. So that's where I transformed.
STAMP seems to be something, the way the passion behind the STAMP is something really we could see. And do you see our youth responsible in preserving our earth? Any guidance notes to the youth?
Of course. And the more we expose our youth to technology, which is what we are doing, the more important it is for us to also educate them on the effect that nature has on them and connect them with nature. Like my grandmom did when we were kids, she would make us plant trees and then we had to name the tree. And that's actually a program we have in STAMP, where you put your name on the tree, or you plant a tree in somebody's name, or you plant a tree for somebody who's passed away. So I just felt that, it's so important that you basically connect the kids, make them understand that it's okay to get your hands dirty. And you should get your hands dirty. That's the good bacteria that's going into your system, that's helping you and your body evolve positively in this world that we live in.
No, I think this year with the World Environment Day on 5th, and we're doing this ESG research lab to have real good research which can help the industry. And the voices today which we're hearing really sets the perspective. Yes, there is lots what today's youth can do.
There's so much that you can do. You guys can do so much. I mean, everybody has to play their part. And I think what STAMP is really looking at doing in the future is creating spaces that mirror these, thoughts and these kind of ideals, that we can go into a school system to educate the children, that we can create these spaces which everybody can enjoy, but the spaces with the intention that we're not just creating a park. We're not just creating, we are creating something that will guide you through your senses to understand what nature means to us. And that's
I think that's the only way we can preserve the planet Earth, and the theme of this year, only one Earth, and only it's going to happen. We have an interesting opinion poll which we have put up around trees and plantation. We'll have it up on the screen when you're there with us now. Yeah, we have the question. This is a very simple question for everyone in the audience. Hundreds of people are therein. So, do you participate in one or more tree plantation drive every year? A simple yes, no from the audience, and we could see that. Let's get the responses right now. And I could very much echo with what Tanishaa did talk to us and our audience right now. You can make a huge difference. And without connecting with nature, there's only one Earth. Will be on paper. We have to get the hands dirty and plant the trees and get the things moving. Yes, can we see the what replies or answers we got? Yeah. Many of the people, I think it's 56% not at all bad who participated. That's a good number. It's on positive. Tanishaa, what's your take? You see, yes, people should plan.
Yes, I think it's great, and I think that's the intention. I think it's fabulous that so much of our audience is already doing it. Now your question should be, how many of you actually make sure that tree survives? How many of you go back year after year to make sure that that tree has become a full-grown tree? How many of you have seen that tree become 10 years and 20 years old? That is a more important question, because it's very easy to plant. It's very difficult to nurture. And that's with anything. It's very easy to start something. It's very difficult to, see it through. And I mean,
so what would be your couple of tips on tree survival, if you can share, or any particular tip?
So the beauty is, I know we live in a small city, Bombay is space, constriction of space. And yes, you can't plant trees everywhere. We don't have that. But in your home, you can definitely grow. And there are many plants that you can just grow in water. You don't even have to water them every day because you're already growing them in water. The money plant, the ferns, they grow beautifully in water. They provide a lot of oxygen and they just flourish. I have one right here, actually. It's beautiful. Let me just show you. I kept it over here because I was like, I'm growing this in water. I just keep, it takes weeks. We travel, we're out of the city. We don't have, but look at the roots. It's grown so beautifully. And it's so green and lush, and it's just a vase, right? It's a tiny little vase, and you don't have to keep coming back to water it because it's already in water and it's already growing.
Great. I think that's the tip for the day. I think thanks so much for that quick tip. And I would real thanks for the great tip coming. We have some panelists around here, and I would just ask Ms. Wassan, we were talking about keeping talent in the industry is a challenge, right? Today, in any industry we have, and with COVID around, the problem of talent retention has magnified many. So how does ESG play a role in the life cycle of an employee?
Yeah, hi. This is in fact a very interesting topic. As being a part of the corporate world, we all should remember that 1/3 of our life we spend in offices, working for corporate houses. So it's just not the work alone. So therefore, it is very important and crucial that the organization recognizes some critical elements such as your social, your ethical, and the responsible practices that have. I'll just share a couple of data points which will help to before I delve into your question. There was a study in 2020 where 1/3 of the Fortune 100 and SP 500 companies have formally included culture as well as employee relations and engagement in their compensation committee charters. Then again, 51% of SAP companies utilize ESG metrics to reward executives in their annual incentives, thereby signifying the growing momentum of incorporating corporate culture as a key metrics in the ESG-linked remuneration. Another very, very critical factor today, when you talk about retention and attracting good talent, today the evolving workforce demographic is, the millennial and the Gen X appears to be more ESG conscious than the previous gen, than we ourselves were. We were happy to get a job and getting the money that we were earning. But today, even my son, he's doing his master's in computer and he's working, the first thing before he accepts an interview is to look at the company's work-life balance, the corporate culture, the ethos, before he accepts an interview invite. I've spoken to many people and they prefer to go for a company with high standards of ethics, code, and work-life balance and employee friendliness before they even think. And they don't mind taking a cut on the package. They are okay. They're fully conscious of that aspect of it, So if you really look at it, and then again, what is expected in the future, 72% of the world workforce in 2029 will be made up by Millennium and Gen X. And according to a report, 55% of employees would choose to work for a responsible company, even if the salary offered was lower. This is all study. This is a study which was conducted, and it is of 2020. It's not of the back of beyond or something like that, So therefore, it also says that the study has also evolved that, working for purpose-driven organization, employees are likely to stay 1.4 times more than engaged, and 3 times are more likely to continue to work with the organization. So ESG today is actually becoming a very, very important aspect of retaining talent, reducing your attrition. And today, after COVID, and we are still reeling under the impact of COVID, yes, employees have been majorly impacted in a large number of things. So what does the ESG do? How do we leverage that to retain talent? So every organization must remember that there are basically 3 phases in an employee's life. One is the starting point is when you're pre-joining, that's your interview time, and the talent acquisition is happening. There has to be an equal opportunity. You just spoke about women being 50%. And I think 39% said yes, by I think 2030, they will be 50%.
Yeah, that's what the question.
Yes. And it's not a phenomena in India alone, it's a phenomenon worldwide. So what is it that is stopping that 50% employment to women and diversity and being able to include? So that's it. So first and foremost is, that the initial pre-joining stage. Then how do you, when you get somebody, I've someone known to me very well who worked with me, she just onboarded another organization. She came back and she's left one organization 10 years after she's worked, goes to another organization. But her induction program was so good, so effective, that she already feels being an integral part. So organization needs to understand that, when you get somebody on board, holding them. Today, by and large, the average is 2 years. If people say you work for 2 years, oh, you're stable. But how do you retain those talents? 2 years, you train a person, you lose it. Then even during the job, how you develop them? What are the learning and development that you do? What are the benefits that you do? What are the parental leaves that you do? How, especially during this pandemic, work-life balance in most cases has been blurred.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I
what
think
happens?
everyone would agree in the panel out here.
So
There's
what's
been a
happened to the
total-
mental health of those people? Today, when we used to go to work, when you leave office, even if it's at 1 hour or 2 hours, you're driving home, you're coming back home, sipping a cup of tea, you have de-linked yourself from work. But today, those who are on work from home, they're finding it a challenge. So all of this put together, the other part is the exit. Now, how do you stop exit? If you don't give a career transition, if you don't invest in your capital, human capital, you'll not retain them. It's a very, very fast-moving country
So for
today.
companies, if I see what Tanishaa said, companies need to invest on environment. We hear from you, Ms. Wassan, you need to invest on human capital.
Absolutely.
Mr. Gupta was talking about investments into lots of systems and processes for governance. And definitely there is a return on this investment. It's
But
not a-
Sonal, just to add, if you don't invest in your human capital, you don't get the other two.
Oh, yes, that's the take. But I would come then, I think Tanishaa would say, if there's no earth left, what do you do with the others?
Yeah, if you're not
Earth,
feeding
of
them
course, is the
healthy
topmost
food, their brains
parameter.
are not operating at optimum. If you're not giving them healthy living, their brains are all mush. They're living in survival. They don't know how to focus.
Right. So
Actually, we should all
No, that I
understand
agree
the
with you,
entire-
Tanishaa. I
Mr. Dhir
completely
also has a
agree.
take on it. Yeah, Mr. Dhir.
Yeah, we say the entire ESG, it functions in this way. It is the environment, it is the development of humans, it is the development of our environment, our flora, our fauna. Everything together needs to work. And that's only if we are concerned for the environment. And then the social and governance are, to effectively put the concerns for the environment into place.
Yeah.
That's what, to my mind, the circle stands for.
Yeah. It is. It's all connected. I mean, what Sonal, ma'am is saying, she's saying, it's about people. And the thing is, we are the earth and the earth is us. So you can't disconnect one from the other. So I feel it's all connected.
No, that I
You're
agree
right.
with you.
It's about putting the importance on the environment, on the earth.
No, I think it's each component, like planet, people, and putting that bridge of governance around and living in a manner that things don't wear down. I think Prateek would really, Mr. Sharma would agree to the point, and especially I would say the institute which you run, TERI, it is the fountainhead of knowledge on sustainability. And keeping things together is it easy to keep the planet and the people together, Mr. Sharma?
Yeah, see, now it's a bit challenging because the most important thing, that one faces is the behavioral change, that one has to bring in. And so sensitizing people and making them aware of, the implications that one action that basically is leading towards a developmental activity would result in a negative impact somewhere else. Teaching of that interconnectivity of one factor leading to another, is a bit of challenge, and which we always strive, to do and contribute. And in fact, we take a lot of pride in, in creating curriculum, various courses that we have developed here at TERI School of Advanced Studies, cover all aspects in a very inclusive manner. we don't actually just look at the environmental aspect or the developmental aspect or the social aspects. We try to inculcate the spirit of inclusivity and how all these things are interlinked with each other. Just to give an example.
I think that is what all the research around ESG and sustainability is around, that yes, both equally important. Manish, I have this one interesting question. How should companies build their policies for the change coming from ESG adoption? Because you're sitting at a very important position at the group level, GC at CK Birla Group, you are seeing things from that perspective, that policies, how would they make the change on the ESG adoption?
I think, Sonal, that's a very good question. But first of all, let's be very clear that ESG is not the forte of lawyers alone. Lawyers can only assist in the policy formulation, but at the end of the day, it's a business which has to imbibe ESG in each and every aspect, process of the business, be it manufacturing, supply chain, warehousing, IT, and so on and so forth. Now, what changes will be required to be made in the policies also depend upon the approach of the business. If they're only interested in following a mere tick in the box approach, or they're actually fundamentally looking to change their business process on the ground to make them ESG compliant, that will determine as to what changes need to be made in the existing policies. And I'm firmly of the opinion that no more are the days for checking the tick in the box. Now you have to make some tangible changes on the ground to ensure that what you're doing, anything and everything that you're doing is ESG compliant.
And now, no greenwashing, we make very clear on the platform. No company should try to say things, we are very green, but actually that's only on paper and there's nothing done around it.
Absolutely. And that's the reason I said earlier also, this whole practice of buying carbon credit is something that I'm dead against. Anyway, now how well you understand your business and process is also going to be a very critical factor in terms of how you change the policy. Now, in theory, it sounds simple, but in reality, it's far more cumbersome and difficult. And let me just explain by way of a couple of examples, the real example that I came to. Just today morning, I was speaking to one of the company secretaries of our operating company, which is in the cement business, and the challenges she was facing in the ESG study. Now, she's doing a very study of the carbon footprint of a supply chain of that particular company. And while doing that, the supply chain captured only the outward freight movement, and they did not include the inward freight movement. Now, one can easily say that it's very logical or it's common sense to include both inward and outward freight movement. But I was wondering that, is it that simple? Was that a mere slip on the part of the supply chain, or is it that they really did not understand that inward freight movement is also part of your carbon footprint? I think it is that understanding which make a real difference, and then the formulation of the policies is a consequential point. So therefore, how well you understand the nuances of a business will determine the changes that we need to make in our policies. And now I'll give you one more example, which is very interesting, but it also throws some light as to how ESG can impact certain policy where we expect the impact to be almost negligible. A couple of months ago, we rolled out a model POSH policy, which is a prevention of sexual harassment at workplace policy from the group office, which is applicable to all the companies within our group. Happy that the policy got rolled out, but as part of the ESG study in one of our companies, a person who is an expert on ESG and also a co-panelist today, asked me a very simple and straightforward question. He said that, did you evaluate the policy from a ESG perspective? Honestly, trust me, I was completely taken aback by the question itself. And I immediately got defensive, and my immediate response was to how ESG can impact a POSH policy, which is formulated completely on the basis of POSH Act. How on earth can ESG impact a POSH policy? Now, he very patiently explained to me that there are essentially three elements of the POSH policy from an ESG perspective, which is no harassment, no discrimination, and no retaliation. And if your policy covers these elements, and obviously these are in addition to what is to be captured from the POSH Act, we are good to go. Honestly, this is an example wherein at least I in my personal capacity, least expected that ESG will impact this policy. So my learning was that in almost anything and everything that we're doing today in a business environment, it is more likely that ESG will impact you in some way or the other. And therefore, the changes required to be made in the ESG policy will not only require a deep understanding of the businesses, which most of us will have, but will also require a very paradigm shift and out-of-box thinking. And a POSH policy was an eye-opener for me.
I think that point which you made, a paradigm shift process in keeping this balance of planet and people, which ESG is all about. I'm getting great views, Sky, which came in today. This time I won't put up an opinion poll for the audience, an opinion poll for us out here on the panel. And this is something I did not discuss with any one of you. And a simple question. If you have to vote for planet or people, which comes first in your mind? Which should be protected first, planet?
Sonal, it's a chicken egg story. There's absolutely no way you can ask this question. It's not a question of
I can
either
answer
or.
that question.
Okay, Tanishaa wants to take
I'm
this.
sorry. I would like to, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Manish.
Please, please.
I'd like to answer that question. And I know it's very difficult for me as an environmentalist to answer this. But I'm, you know, as my mother says, I would protect people. But in order to protect people, you need to protect what the planet provides to us. So unfortunately, it is, I would protect people because the planet will survive. We will create global warming. We will have the ice age. We will destroy an environment that is suitable for us to live in. And the human population will be wiped out. Earth will go on. The planet will survive. However, the environment that we can live in on Earth will not survive. So I would say by taking care of my environment, I'm actually protecting people. I'm not protecting the Earth. Mother Earth is way stronger than me. She don't need my protection. She really doesn't.
Great take. Anyone, please? I want that we are towards the end of the panel.
I think it's such a beautiful and disarming what Tanishaa has said. I don't know what more to say.
I completely endorse what she says, you know, that if the planet is there, then the people will survive. If the people survive, the planet is not there. So there's no choice. But yes, the emphasis would be more on the planet, and then of course on a prioritization. But I don't think either of them you can do without either of them. But the prioritization will of course definitely change.
Planet. Okay, Manish, what's your?
No, I think it's not a question of either or, and as Tanishaa rightly pointed out, that human race may not survive, but the planet will survive. So I think it's there in front of us. It's not a question of either or. What the planet will do is there's no human survival. So therefore, I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of planets in the galaxy. So we both need each other, and one cannot do without the other.
Great, Mr. Sharma.
Absolutely, very well said by Tanishaa. But yeah, but most important thing is this: the planet actually is, you know, is too potent an entity, you know, that it takes care of itself, and you know, in case something happens, it basically brings in the necessary changes to adapt to the new changes, the realities that basically take place. So it's important that you know, the people, as rightly mentioned, I completely agree, and the things are actually so intertwined and interlinked, you know. And in fact, here in India only we spoke about Vasudev Kutumbakam. I mean, we talk, so actually all these things are interlinked. So I completely endorse what she has said.
Great. And I think it's been just a very great panel today, and everyone did speak up on various issues which actually needs to be talked about in a very passionate manner. And thanks for everyone's time. I know we are getting Q&As. And there's one, I think a couple of questions quickly can I take, which is addressed to, I think one is coming, which I can see on my screen coming for Ms. Wassan, the organizing team. Akshay, can we take that one question from Akasha before we could get on to the vote of thanks? And other questions we can maybe take in offline.
I think Sonal, you can read out the question for Ms.
I will, yeah. Question which is addressed to Ms. Wassan is, can you please share, maybe we can include that to showcase our management to enlighten while speaking on ESG topics. So maybe some of the material which you quoted and this recording would be there available on our portal and the other.
I'll share it with you, Sonal, on the mail,
sure.
Data point, and then you can share it with Akansha, the lady who has asked for it.
Yeah. Okay. I would take in, and it's been just very great, and I know we have shot the time already by 7 minutes. I'm getting the Hooter request coming from the teams that we have overshot, and I would really ask our founder and managing partner, Mr. Alok Dhir, for a vote of thanks for the event. Yes, sir, please.
So thank you everybody. I must start by thanking the organizers, the expertness, and Sonal, of course, you're part of the team, but I must give full credit. You're the one who's organized it along with our CEO, Poonam. But it's been a very, very interesting session today, panel today. I mean, there's been a lot of wisdom which has come and knowledge. And I must say knowledge comes from the people who are technically involved, and wisdom comes from people who speak from their heart. And today we've had a great combination of people who are both mind and heart working together, and they have all contributed a lot. We realize that, and this is something that all of us have to understand very importantly. It's the people and the planet. And when I say people, it's not just humans. The planet stands for entire flora, the animals, the people, the birds, the insects, everything. So a protection of the planet is absolutely essential. The way, as I mentioned, the way we are degrading the environment, we could reach a situation of no return. And as humans and people with consciousness, people with mind, it is our responsibility and duty to save the planet. And it is not just for ourselves. It is for our future generations, and it is for all living beings on the planet that we have to work for. And as I said today, I hope this has kindled a light in the heart of very young participants. We have, as we said, a large number of very young lawyers who are participating. And with that small light in their heart, we hope they become the ESG warriors. I hope they carry forward the torch and create a better environment for us to live in and for future generations to live in. Thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate your time and effort coming here and speaking to our participants and perhaps guiding them. And maybe incidents like these, seminars like these, change the life of youngsters. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Dhir. Mr. Gupta, thanks, Tanishaa. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks,
Sonalji, if I would like to intervene for half a minute, please, if you permit.
Please, sir.
So, in fact, I would like to thank Dhir and Dhir for, creating this platform and giving us all of us this opportunity to, come together and interact. Because I personally feel, academic institutions, they actually do create knowledge and disseminate through formal education. But such forums basically, create that platform in which, in a very small snippet form, the knowledge, the created knowledge gets disseminated, and people get more aware and sensitive about issues related to environment and sustainability. So I, really thank from the bottom of my heart, all who have been responsible for, organizing this workshop. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you so much.
everyone for attending.